O Filipe Melo, talvez.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning to all of you. If you could start to take your seats, we could begin with this opening session.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning to all of you, and welcome to Malaga. Honourable First Deputy Speaker of the Senate of Spain, Mr. Maroto, Honourable Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Morocco, Mr. Rachid Talbi, Honourable Vice President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Pina Piscina, Honourable Deputy Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Mr. Mohammed Aboulien, Honourable Speakers, ladies and gentlemen, and heads of delegations. If I could, please, I would like to say, first of all, that I would like to pay tribute to the 6 victims, 5 women and a child, who in Spain have probably been murdered by their partners or by the former partners there this week in Spain. Let's please fight to ensure that we get to a society where we can't have men killing women simply because they are women, or killing their children to hurt that woman. We need to be in a society like ours that we consider to be modern and advanced and civilized. We cannot continue this way. We have to fight against this, all of us working together to get rid of the nightmare of male violence against women and vicarious violence that exists in this society. Only then will we be the civilized society that we strive to be. It is a huge honor for me to be able to open this 9th Summit of Speakers of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean in the framework of the Spanish presidency, which began on the 16th of February last year in Rabat. When we took over from our dear friend here, we have the Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of the Kingdom of Morocco, Mr. Rachid Talbi. As you know, The Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean came into being with a mission to assist, drive and contribute to the consolidation development of the Barcelona process, organised by the European Union in 1995, with the goal of strengthening the relationship between Europe and the countries of Northern Africa, the Balkans and the Middle East. So this year is the 30th anniversary of what was one of the most important milestones of Mediterranean multilateralism, with which we tried to set up a space for dialogue, peace, stability and prosperity, all of which should be shared. We cannot forget the fact that back then the Arab-Israeli conflict was going through a great moment following the Madrid peace conference agreements and the Oslo Accords. But that initial momentum, which was hopeful, was then dragged down by the stagnation of the peace process in the Middle East, whose complexity was underestimated, and by the lack of major political and social reforms in the Mediterranean region that did not manage to create that climate of understanding in the field of security following the terrorist attacks of the 11th of September 2001 and the controversial theory of the clash of civilizations by Samuel Huntington, who said that the major conflicts in the world would be between civilizations and not between economies or ideologies. For the very first time, the idea was born, the theory of the alliance of civilization, and that became a special initiative that was co-sponsored by the governments of Spain and Turkey. As of that moment in time, there was an attempt made to revive and revitalize the European Mediterranean dialogue with the creation of the Union for the Mediterranean in 2008. Jorge Sampaio, the former president of the Portuguese Republic, stated back then that it is in the Mediterranean region where the possibilities of reconciliation and cooperation are deepest, where constructive exchanges have allowed humankind to take real steps forward. In the Mediterranean space, the dialogue between two worlds is developed. Now, if this dialogue works out, and that was what Sampaio said, we will have made progress on the path towards peace and stability. Those words are still valid today. And it is that dialogue that has always been our goal during this presidency. So 30 years on from the Declaration of Barcelona, the Mediterranean region, as well as suffering increasing migratory pressures, which have not been accompanied by proportional economic growth, is living through times of uncertainty, characterized by political instability and by the worsening of the persistent conflicts here. The tension in the world today, in fact, following the events of recent days, have painted a panorama for us which is unprecedented. As you know, the theme chosen by the Spanish presidency this year has been the migratory situation in the Mediterranean from a holistic perspective. The underlying causes of migratory flows explain almost all the challenges that our region faces today. The new Commissioner for the Mediterranean, Madam Suica, who will be speaking us today in a video message since she has not been able to come in person here to Malaga, presented to us at our last meeting at the Forum on the Future of the Mediterranean, which was held in the city of Granada in April this year, those key ideas of the new Pact for the Mediterranean. Now, this pact, together with the creation in the European Commission of this new portfolio, shows the high priority that will be given to the Mediterranean agenda over forthcoming years. The new Pact for the Mediterranean will include the 10 countries of the southern neighbourhood, and its aim will be to strengthen the common space of peace, prosperity and stability in the region. For Spain, the Mediterranean has always been a priority in our foreign policy. Our relationship with the Mediterranean and with the eastern and southern Mediterranean shore countries is not one of mere neighbourhood relationship. It's more a partnership, an interdependence relationship. In 2021, Spain gave its backing to the adoption of the new agenda for the Mediterranean. Since 2023, has facilitated and led, together with other countries, a process to strengthen the Union for the Mediterranean with a proposal of new priorities that will be reflected in a roadmap that is envisaged for adoption by the end of 2025. It is essential, there's no doubt about it, that we remain coordinated actively with the government side of the Union for the Mediterranean its Secretary General, Mr. Nasser Kamel, was with us in Grenada too. And there he asked us, and today I'm going to ask all of you today the same thing, that we revive the hope of shared peace. We urgently need a unified approach to the conflict in the Middle East, an approach that, once and for all, will bring an end to the terrible pictures that we're seeing of genocide and the Gaza Strip. And jointly, we need to commit to that peaceful solution for two states. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran also needs to be permanent and absolute, because the consequences of that conflict may be dire in the delicate global panorama. We are extremely concerned about what we're seeing, that escalation of violence that over and over again is violating international legality. We need to come to our senses again and strive to impose peace through diplomacy and through multilateralism. Regaining optimism, faith in the possibility of dialogue must be an imperative. Above all, because we continue to face urgent challenges that we hope can be addressed with solvency, responsibility. The climate emergency, for one, which calls on all of us to act. This is a region which is warming or heating up 20% more quickly than the rest of the world. We need to put an end to that issue of the high percentage of shipping in the world that is sailing through our waters, support determinedly initiatives to promote renewable energies that are low in carbon and climate neutral, and also make a commitment to cities with the energy transition that have to become immediate measures to be put in practice. And of course, I'm not forgetting young people or the position of women. 50% of the population of the countries on the southern shores of the Mediterranean is under 24 years old, but many of them are completely isolated from social and economic growth. Bringing in that untapped human talent into the market, especially the young women, is essential as a task for us today. And many of the programs that we have implemented that are about circular economy are for them. It's important to make a distinction between the really structural causes of migratory movements in the Mediterranean regions and the circumstantial ones. Many people are fleeing from countries where they don't even have the most basic resources, such as clean drinking water. This is a different type of migration than the ones that we're seeing for asylum seekers coming from armed conflicts. I'd like to finish with a sentence from my dear friend Nasser Kamel. The Mediterranean is not a dividing line, but rather a shared space, a bridge between cultures, and a source of immense opportunities. Let that be the case for a very long time to come. I'm looking forward to hearing from your own thoughts. Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the First Deputy Speaker of the Senate of Spain, Mr. Javier Maroto. Thank you very much, and good morning to you, dear Speaker of the Congress of Deputies, speakers of the Chambers of Representatives of Morocco and Egypt, also members of parliaments, heads of delegation from countries also bordering onto the Mediterranean and other countries interested in what is happening in the Mediterranean, to the Mayor of Malaga and your corporation, the delegate of the government here, also to the members of the Congress of Deputies in the Senate of Spain. Dear friends, all of you, this is a special moment in time for Spain's presidency of this Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean. As the Speaker of the Congress of Deputies already said, the key theme over these months chosen by Spain has been migration from a holistic approach. In other conferences, particularly the one we held in Lanzarote, we highlighted and underscored the humanitarian dimension and the human tragedy facet of many of those migratory flows and the consequences that they have for the lives of many migrants, and how mafias abuse the position of those people. And it is a shared tragedy for the whole of Europe. Perhaps it is time to start to reach some conclusions. Going beyond the humanitarian dimension, we should also reach some conclusions about whether or not those migration flows should be taken into account in the sense of the people who are coming here, what they are bringing to us, the positive elements, and we need to look at facts and figures. I think Spain could be an example for many views. The birth rate, the replacement rate we have here in Spain, Spanish women, is one of the lowest in the world. 1.12 children per woman. That means that without migration, Spain's population would actually be lower than the population we had in the 20th century. That is the first thought for you. Also, for the population pyramid and how it is built up in Spain, migration is important. That is the very first thought I would share with you. We need to bring in people who can work in our societies and who can form part of those societies. Europe cannot live without migration. Secondly, we have to take into account the degree of participation of these migrants in our societies. It might be interesting for you to know that the 24% of the young people up to 24 are from outside. So I would say 1/3 of those were not born in Spain. So the conclusion is quite obvious. We need more migrants, and there are a lot of young migrants who are coming to our country. Let's talk about employment. What about the employment rate and how migration affects our societies? Another surprising fact. The Elcano Institute gives us this figure from official sources. 90% of the new contracts signed between January 2024 and March 2025, 90% of those employment contracts were for migrants in Spain. 72% for domestic service, migrants, and 45% of all of the people hired in hotel and catering trade are also migrants. So there are whole sectors in our economy that have workers who are migrant workers. That's another important conclusion. But there are also areas where we need to make improvements, particularly with regard to African women. The employment rate is only 46% in that case because of their traditional role of staying at home and having a secondary position. So that 46% employment rate is there, but it's 87% for African males for the working rate. Native women is 84%. So there's a lot of room for improvement there with regard to issuing countries and host countries. So one conclusion we can draw for migration is, yes, it is necessary. And the discussion is about what type of migration is necessary, what characteristics that migration should have. I think we have to be courageous, bold here. We need legal, orderly migration that is linked to the labor market and that also respects the Western values of the societies the migrants come to. And in exchange, those migrants have to also receive respect from our societies, integration, and we need to combat any kind of discrimination against them, and especially, and I'd like to underscore this, any racist or xenophobic behavior or speech. So these are some of the possible conclusions with regard to migration, but I wouldn't like to finish my speech without mentioning the elephant in the room, which is, of course, the conflict in the Middle East. If there's any way to describe this, I would say, is its complexity, as the Speaker of the Congress said before. It's been going on with decades. There's a lot of bias here. There are countries that have seen the Jewish Holocaust on their own land, and there are other who have very specific views on what is happening in Israel and the Middle East. There are voices that are saying that Israel is a country committing genocides, and others say that if it didn't defend itself, that it would be wiped off the face of the earth. It would stop existing. So others say that Israel is guilty of murdering innocent civilians and children in Gaza, and others that say that children are being used as human shields to avoid weapons being destroyed. Others are blaming Israel for being racist, and others say there is a huge Arab-Israeli population in Israel, and there are no Jews in Palestine. Others say that it is oppressing as a state, and others say that it's the only democracy in that area of the world, in the Middle East. Then Ukraine is being defended as a democracy in the face of an autocracy, that is Russia's, and others could say, well, what about this democracy that is being threatened by other states such as Iran? What about individual freedoms that exist there in the state? We're close to gay pride here. Tel Aviv is a place where this is celebrated, not in Palestine. Others say that Israel wants war. And other voices say Palestine has rejected any possible agreement for the construction of two states. It's impossible to have one single vision on this. But I'm mentioning all of these different versions, these different views that people have, because I think this Parliamentary Assembly and our dear Deputy Speaker from Egypt knows this, has an additional task ahead of it. We have to come up with a common diagnosis. We have to, of course, respect the history of the facts in the Middle East and try to add and contribute something towards the solution there. The Muslim countries there in the Mediterranean, the European countries, all the partner countries here in the Mediterranean can try and reach a solution here and think about it, getting rid of those biases, because the situation is definitely complex. And if that wasn't difficult enough, we're now in a situation in which the same countries are now launching missiles against each other while they are also asking for a de-escalation of the situation. It's almost impossible to understand, but that is the situation we're facing today. And that is my last point here in my presentation, my opening address. I think the Spanish presidency has done an awful lot on migration, but at every single meeting that we've held, the conflict in the Middle East has come up. And I think this is work ahead of this Parliamentary Assembly for the forthcoming months, and we need to all work on that. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor Maroto.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Morocco.
السيدة الرئيسة فرانسينا أرمنغول رئيسة مجلس النواب بالمملكة الإسبانية.
Honourable Speaker of the Congress of Deputies of the Kingdom of Spain, Francina Armengol, and Honourable Speaker of the Senate, Deputy Speaker of the Senate of the Kingdom of Spain, Mr. Maroto, esteemed speakers of the Legislative Assemblies of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honoured to participate once again in this parliamentary summit hosted by this authentic city that represents Mediterranean culture par excellence, and also really represents the diverse, rich and open Mediterranean heritage. We're talking about Malaga, a bright civilization where the north, the south, the east and the west converge. I'd like to thank you, Honourable Speaker Francina and Honourable Deputy Speaker Javier Maroto. Thank you so much for this kind invitation and also for the excellent conditions that have been deployed by the authorities of Spain to provide the right conditions to organize the 18th session of our Parliamentary Assembly and the 9th Summit of Speakers. I really commend you on your choice for this meeting in this ancient city that overlooks the beaches of Morocco. The citizen of Morocco sitting here with you can actually see Tangiers or Tetuan from this very spot, and therefore in his heart and mind can really understand the meaning of good neighborly relations and the spirit of friendship that unites our countries and peoples and unifies our horizons. We hope that our debates in this city will be a stepping stone for a new journey of our Parliamentary Assembly. And I say this because remember that 33 years ago, Malaga hosted in 1992 the first Interparliamentary Conference on Security and Cooperation in the Mediterranean within the framework of the Interparliamentary Union. This then, in 2006, was transformed in Amman to become a Parliamentary Assembly that today coincides with the objectives that we have in this Parliamentary Assembly, which was set up in 2004 as the Euro-Mediterranean Parliamentary Forum. I also like to say that there are many challenges and problems that this region is faced with, and also the international situation, which leads to many uncertainties and huge risks. And I'd also like to highlight the causes, conflicts and crises of the Euro-Mediterranean area amidst the world order. After the world assumed a conviction that it had entered a new era, overcoming Cold War and the geopolitical bipolarity, and that region was on the verge of reaching an historic peace agreement following the Madrid conference and the Oslo agreements, the logic of war and methods of violence and counter-violence have prevailed. The resentments resurfaced and have had an effect on the Eastern Mediterranean and destroying all the gains of peace, negotiation and dialogue. Honourable colleagues, we have prepared many speeches and dialogues and documents in this Parliamentary Assembly, the challenges and dilemmas that the region faces, particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean and its surrounding areas: migration, asylum, climate imbalances, food and energy crises, and the huge gap, ever larger gap between the North and the South in wealth and technology. So here at our 18th session of our Assembly, celebrating the 21st anniversary of its establishment, we find ourselves as institutions, as peoples, as countries and public opinion, and particularly as elites, we find ourselves in a volatile situation on several fronts, with all the human, economic, political and financial costs that this entails. Allow me, colleagues, to recall with profound regret and sorrow that those that pay the price for this condition, the deteriorated condition, and the biggest victim are the Palestinian people. It is the Palestinian cause that is at the heart of this, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are at the heart of this. So this implies that we need to have put an end to the war in the region, the war in Gaza. This is an urgent priority, as His Majesty King Mohammed VI, chairperson of Al-Quds Committee, said. May God assist him. We need a peace. We need a lasting peace in the region. This would put an end to extremism, to the exploitation of conflicts for narrow national interests, paving the way to coexistence, cooperation, and a shared prosperity and the sharing of potential and wealth of the region, and prosperity and a decent life. But the fact is that if we do not guarantee the existence of the Palestinian people under the leadership of their internationally recognized official institutions, with their legitimate right to acquire independence and construct their sovereign national state, this region will continue being an area of violence, chauvinism, extremism, and instability. And those who believe that the strategic and economic repercussions of the matter will be limited to the region are wrong. Because of its strategic wealth, its position and maritime routes, the stability of the region is closely linked to global economic stability. Ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Speaker, the Spanish presidency of our Parliamentary Assembly proposed migration as the main theme for the agenda. We agree. We agree that wars, conflicts, and climate imbalances, together with lack of development, are the main reasons behind migration, displacement, and asylum, with all the human and social burdens, both for the countries of origin, such as is also true for transit countries, and the host ones. We have talked about this at previous summits, and particularly in the forum in Grenada. We have analyzed the causes of this phenomenon, and we've also seen the growing demand of and need for regular migration in host countries, and also the historical nature of this phenomenon. As legislators, as elites, we must work on redressing the misrepresentation of migration and its relation to certain social problems in the host countries. We need to make sure that this is not used as a political issue in the countries of destination. We need to look at the profound causes of the situation for migration in the countries of origin. We need to look at the transit countries and the cost of this management. Allow me to recall the exemplary cooperation and close coordination between the kingdoms of Morocco and Spain in the flow of migrants coming from various countries of the south, following a humanitarian vision based on human rights. Honourable colleagues, we, speakers of the Euro-Mediterranean parliaments, faced with the major challenges of our region and of the world, we must always remember the history of this area, of this basin, and the decisive contribution to construct a human civilization as we know it at the moment. An area which has been a land of values, of intellect, of solidarity, of love of life, of freedom, of exchanges and movement and migration. To conclude, I wish to praise the efforts deployed by the Spanish presidency of our Parliamentary Assembly through Mrs. Francina and Javier. I know that this comes from a Mediterranean country, a country proud of belonging to this region, attached to peace, solidarity, and respect for the other. I'd also like to thank the Honourable Dr. Hanafi Gabali, Speaker of the House of Representatives, who will be hosting the rotating presidency of our Assembly. And I reiterate my trust in the future of this Parliamentary Assembly, chaired by a member of the elite of an old-age sister country that assumes a prominent regional and continental role. Thank you so much. Can I now give the floor to the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives of Egypt? You have the floor, sir.
Bismillah. معالي السيدة فرانسينا أرمنغول رئيسة مجلس.
Honourable Speaker Francina Armengol, Speaker of the Spanish Parliament, Honourable Javier Maroto, Vice Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honourable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pride that I'm here with you today. Allow me to express my tribute to the colleagues in the Kingdom of Spain for their generosity and for their excellent hospitality. I would like to thank the Spanish Authority for the contributions that they have made to make it possible for this meeting to be held. You've done some excellent work, and I know that you always dedicate a lot of time and effort to the organization of this meeting. The Barcelona process in 1995 was a relevant political document, which reflected a clear commitment to dedicate efforts to peace, prosperity, and well-being in the Mediterranean basin, right up to 2008, when the Union for the Mediterranean was launched. We have focused on dialogue, a north-south, south-north dialogue, on a complementary basis in a region with many resources, abundant resources. All of this to give dignified life and peace to the citizens of the region. Today we are here to discuss the most relevant issues in the Middle East and the very negative impact on the present and future of the two shores of the Mediterranean. We now see that we're faced with challenges and opportunities at the same time, since the conflicts and progress at political and social level have had an impact both in the past and the present. That is to have economic and social development, including renewable energy, artificial intelligence, dialogues moving towards peace and security of the region. The Middle East, ladies and gentlemen, has been faced with serious challenges, with crises, important crises, interconnected. And at the very heart of this is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, its impact, and the bloody genocide perpetrated by the State of Israel against Palestinians. We can see what's happening to the defenseless Palestinian citizens one day after another. They're elderly, women and children. We see how this Palestinian population is suffering day after day and is suffering via cruces, which we've hardly ever seen in history. This is a people exposed to death, to genocide, to destruction. This is the reality. This is the present situation in Gaza, and you know this. You know what is happening in Gaza on a daily basis, and I'm saying this quite openly. There's a new plan, the new Middle East. It's called with different names. But behind this, there are plans of destruction of countries, of disintegration of societies, and to eradicate, a total eradication of a country, of a society, and that is the country and Palestinian society. This indiscriminate war in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, has also been moved to other areas which could really turn the entire region into an inferno. We have all had to stand up. We have all had to speak out to make sure that this massacre, this genocide needs to stop immediately. And we need to go back to the proposals, to the recommendations offered by the Arab states. We proposed two initiatives. These two initiatives basically referred to land in exchange for peace. That is to go back to the initiative defended by 21 Arab states. We want peace, and we can only find peace through a two-state solution. This is the only possible option. There are other alternatives that go very much against this solution of the two-state solution. We see that force and barbaric actions have taken over the region. The situation is getting darker day after day, even within the United Nations. In the rooms of the United Nations, we see that the General Assembly takes a vote on the basis of 141 countries voting in favor and 2 countries vote against. There's a veto, and therefore the resolution cannot be implemented. So the solution, the two-state solution, is very important and is being postponed time after time. Is this the way in which we can reach a peace? The Arab region is exposed to a serious risk, a risk of total holistic war, and we don't want this to happen. We would like to take a firm stance, and we would like to make sure that this stance overcomes all types of violence. We need to find a solution, peace. When the European Union talks about reconstruction of Gaza, an initiative that was agreed and had been agreed by the European Union, and this was an important step in this direction. We defend peace. We would like the Arab Republic of Egypt at official level and at extra-official level. We've made incredible efforts to achieve peace and to avoid that other parties enter this war and that this conflict becomes an international conflict. And we don't want this to happen. We need to get back to the negotiating table. We need to get back to a dialogue. We need to ensure the right for a Palestinian state to exist, to create a free Palestinian nation on the side of the State of Israel. We're going to acknowledge this. We're going to recognize this, and we shall try to promote this solution fervently. And this is what we've defended in the past, and this is what we'd like to defend. We agree with the European Union, and they are in favor of the two-state solution, and many other countries are in favor of the two-state solution. However, there are a few countries that issue a veto to finding a durable peace to this conflict. I do not want to go on at great length, but you watch the news and you can see what happens in the region day after day. We're faced with many challenges here, and we need to face up to these challenges, both at economic and political level. We must understand that the very heart of this region can achieve many developments. We can get many opportunities for the entire region through peace. That is why we need to grant a new position, a new way of governing, governing the Middle East through a new agreement which establishes a clear link between the north and south of the Mediterranean. We are really making many efforts. The national resources that we have are on the table, and we want to achieve this supreme objective. Egypt has been one of the countries that has contributed through its parliament. It is one of the countries that has fought to put the Middle East and the Mediterranean in its proper place, and especially through specialized studies. We're in favor of development of the circular economy, of having all the parties involved, both in the north and the south of the Mediterranean, through multilateralism. We need to achieve this new objective, to use all the huge resources we have, the human resources, the economic resources that we have. And we need to make young people get involved in this issue too. We always say that conflicts are between the East and the West, and we can see that there are new realities, realities in the area of artificial intelligence, quantic computing, And all of this can have an effect on many of the initiatives that we're discussing. We need to really try and look at all these initiatives and to create fertile ground for this. And Egypt, on the shores of the Nile, and the sons of Egypt lived in an area which was only 6%. It lived only in 6% of the entire Egyptian territory. And the Honourable President of Egypt, Sisi, we've managed to expand the area in which people live from 6 to 14%. And those are really initiatives that we can promote by building railroads, industrial areas, residential areas. All of this implies carrying out investments, but not only in Egypt. They could be seen as initiatives which could be replicated in other parts of the Mediterranean too. We will have an opportunity over the next few years. We will have an opportunity to promote all these investments for infrastructure and industrial development. So the time has come. The time has come to expand our initiatives, and I hope that we will start having meetings again on a different way of thinking of the use of our wisdom, of our reason. Egypt will not allow any type of transgression of its national territory. Egypt will not accept any type of interference in its domestic affairs or possible violation of its national territory and integrity. This is a red line that cannot be crossed. Peace initiatives are there, are on the table, and we call upon the Israeli side to participate in these dialogues, to participate in a true dialogue to achieve peace by implementing the two-state solution. That is the only solution to achieve this aim. Who could possibly accept a different solution to that one? Which party is encouraging this war? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. I do hope that this new era, together with the European Union, and I wish the European Union a lot of luck in its excellent job to promote peace in the region. We need to work on the initiatives that have been voiced side by side with the European Union. And I'd like to say that investments and sustainability are possible. It's possible to achieve this aim. And the true key to face up to irregular immigration is to promote this type of investments, which goes to the benefit of those countries that are the countries from which people are migrating. We have many examples of this. China, for instance, promoted the Belt and Road Initiative, which is an excellent initiative to create a large, broad infrastructural project across borders. We can do similar things, since this initiative has made it possible for China to give employment to young people, to the middle classes, and to achieve development. We need initiatives, we need ideas, we need new sources of investment and of financing. Ever since 2008, I spoke about the creation of a Euro-Mediterranean bank to promote investments for all of this, for all of these initiatives. So I say, I repeat, I renew my discourse for a prosperous Middle East where the population has a very prosperous initiative. So let us try and put this into practice, because peace and development needs to be the very basis on which all of these functions can be carried out. And let us fight against the lack of justice.
With no manipulation, with no fear at all. Once again, I'm very happy and very proud to be here with all of you today, and I will listen very closely to any initiative that you may propose. Thank you very much for your attention and for your kindness, and you're welcome. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Let me give the floor now to the Vice President of the European Parliament, Ms. Pina Picierno.
Francina, illustri.
Thank you, Francina. Thank you, honourable representatives. It's an honour for me to be representing the European Parliament. I'd like to greet the Mayor of the city of Malaga, and I'd also like to greet all the authorities that are present here today. So I would also like to start my debate with a word of gratitude to the Spanish presidency for the very excellent work that has been done in the course of this year, which concludes today through this meeting. I know that you've had to do a lot of hard work, a very generous work, but I think it has given a new impetus to this assembly, offering both visibility and serious contributions to our initiative. And I'm referring here particularly to the joint declarations that we adopted in Lanzarote and the final conclusions of the Granada meeting. And I'm thinking of the work that we have carried out over the last year, because we have focused on serious issues, complex issues. But we've done this, we've always done this, and I'd like to underscore this. We've done this on a constructive basis and with the common objective of finding shared solutions. Now, why do I underscore this? Well, too often we underestimate the profound values and the importance of dialogue in a world where dialogue is replaced by a lack of trust. The fact that we establish a dialogue, that we sit across the table from each other and look each other in the eye, I think is in itself a gesture of resistance, but also of hope, especially today, at a time when our region is faced with huge difficulties. And of course we know that dialogue on itself is not enough. And that is why we need to really shoulder our responsibilities. The time has come to face these responsibilities with courage and with truth. After 30 years of the Barcelona process, we need to admit that many of the promises that we made, well, these promises weren't kept. Many of the promises that we made to the citizens of the Mediterranean were not met. I'm thinking about the objective to build a common area of peace, of stability and prosperity in the Mediterranean. And this is still today, unfortunately, an objective which is far removed from reality. There are many challenges we need to face together. Many of you have already underscored these, the previous speakers. Economic integration. Intra-Mediterranean trade is less than a third of foreign trade of the entire region. So this is a very weak economic interconnection, is then leads to less growth, less employment, fewer opportunities for the young people, for businessmen. And if you don't have any opportunities, well, we know that is where inequality increases and tension grows. And this is why migration is encouraged. Because after all, there's a huge demographic disparity. About half of the citizens of the southern Mediterranean are below the age of 25. And this is an extraordinary resource, and it is our duty to invest in this potential. And all these challenges are challenges that are profoundly interconnected. The lack of satisfaction in a context highlighted by conflicts is then seen as a way of wanting to build a new life, new hope and prosperity, and to imagine one's own future. And that, in this very fragile context, it is obvious that the recent escalation between Israel and Iran has led to further instability. And this, again, has promoted the concerns of the entire region, which is going towards an even broader conflict, a wider conflict, which really denies prosperity and development. So today, we welcome the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran. And of course, we hope that it will stick, because conflict doesn't just lead to loss of life, but it also undermines the trust between countries and feeds irregular migration flows, which very often end in tragedy. So the Mediterranean needs to believe in a positive agenda, and along these lines, we welcome the initiative of the European Commission, which has led to a new pact for the Mediterranean. You know that the European Parliament is very closely monitoring this process, and we want to make sure that this pact can be at the height of the many challenges of this region, and that it is supported by significant resources which are certainly sufficient to achieve our objectives and ambitions. The Parliament, the European Parliament, would play an important role to promote the role played by the European Commission. We want this to be an ambitious project, a specific project, which can lead to a true change of the region. Honourable colleagues, I also mentioned the conflicts that the region suffers from, and the tragedy occurring in Gaza really forces us to think seriously about the responsibility, about the collective responsibility and the responsibility of this assembly, because we need to have the political courage and joint actions which are decisive and that are efficient. The public infrastructure, the institutions, the civilians need to be protected based on international law. And this assembly needs to say loudly that the war must stop. We need to say clearly that civilians need to be protected, that the access to humanitarian aid must be guaranteed, that the Israeli hostages detained by the Hamas terrorists need to be released. And we need to create together And it is a difficult task. We understand this, but together we need to create the minimum conditions to build trust and hope, because that is what we need to do in this assembly. So today we need to talk about a two-state solution, and you may feel that this is very far removed from reality, but it is at the moment, at this very moment, at this very difficult moment, that we need to reaffirm that the two-state solution is the only practical solution to move towards a fair and a sustainable and shared peace. But we need to act. We need to act decisively with a vision and with a political will before any other opportunities are definitively closed. We need to talk to each other. We need to look each other in the eyes, as I said at the beginning. We need to speak. And that is an important step that needs to be taken. It's a fundamental step. But if we really want to honor the spirit of the Mediterranean, I think the time has really come to act, and especially to do this together, as we've always tried to do. Thank you so much for this meeting. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, señora Pichel.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Pichona. With those words, we will bring this opening session of the summit to an end. Before we move on to the debates phase, we could have our family photo. The protocol team will take us to where we have to go for the photo. And at 12 on the dot, to not fall behind on the agenda, please come back here. You do have a lithograph from the universal Malaga citizen Picasso there as a little reminder, memento of this summit here in Malaga. And thank you to the Mayor of Malaga for joining us, as well as the corporation and the delegate of the Spanish Committee in Malaga. Thank you.
and boosting cooperation. It is an indispensable forum for dialogue. Your exchanges foster mutual understanding and the benefits of working together across the region. In times of global uncertainty, enhanced cooperation along the shores of the Mare Nostrum can indeed create an area of sustainable prosperity and stability. An essential element of strengthening our cooperation is the new Pact for the Mediterranean, which I intend to present this autumn. The European Union and the southern neighborhood countries in North Africa, the Middle East, and the Gulf are building it together in a partnership of equals. Dear Presidents, the Pact priorities will focus on 3 areas: people, clean and sustainable economies, and third, peace, resilience, and security, including migration. We are putting people at the center. We want to invest in higher education, in professional training, and in jobs. We are also promoting cultural exchange, sport, and tourism. With the creation of the Med University Network, we can help lay the foundations for cutting-edge skills development across the board. And through clean tech projects, such as the Trans-Mediterranean Energy and Clean Tech Cooperation Initiative, we can create the quality jobs needed for sustainable growth and vibrant economies. With the Pact, we are also strengthening cooperation on security, from disaster preparedness to fighting migrant smuggling, while opening more legal pathways for labor migration and strengthening our talent partnerships. Dear participants, to conclude, I would like to especially underline one point. The youth is of crucial importance to us. I'm glad to hear that my proposal of a Youth Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean that I made at our gathering in April in Granada is now being discussed more broadly among a range of interested stakeholders. Together, we can make this a concrete and precious reality for our youth, giving them a voice in their present and future. And to end, I wish you a successful summit and look forward to our future cooperation.
Vamos ahora a empezar.
Well, let's get started with our debate. Let me give the floor, first of all, to the head of the delegation of Donald Magmason from Palestine. You should see the time you have allotted to you on your screens.
Hola. Gracias, señora.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the City Council from Malaga, the whole corporation, and of course all of the national authorities for the excellent welcome. What I would like to underscore is the theme of development and the fight against poverty. Now, to do that, all of that requires stability, and stability requires peace, and peace requires justice and continuing dialogue. We do not believe in any peace that is imposed on us by force. Some people talk about that at an international level, that peace needs to be imposed by force. No, that's not right. It is the force of law that matters. All of us are aware of the degree of suffering of the Palestinian people in the occupied territories today. All of us do know, too, that the cause of the current situation is the neo-Nazi occupation by Israel. That is against the will of all international institutions that are wishing to impose international legislation. The Israeli occupation has stolen from us our past, our present, our future, and our hope of life. So the question now is, what can you expect from any human being when you strip that person of all their values? The Palestinian people has offered so much with the support of the Arab Islamic states to be able to reach a fair, holistic, peaceful solution with the State of Israel. But those in government in Israel today form a highly radical government in Israel. They have destroyed all attempts by all parties, that is, the Arab states, the Islamic states, and the European states. They themselves have assassinated President Rabin. They are the ones who took their former President Olmert to jail, because this government has established its own ideas. It wants everything. It wants all of the occupied territories. So anyone who thinks about reaching a peace with Palestine is simply was killed or taken to jail. They invent anything against that person. Peace needs to be built on the basis of justice. And as there are no rights that can just be lent to the Palestinian people, it's a question of self-determination. It's a question of having a viable state in the occupied territories. But until those two concepts actually exist, there will be no peace. We want peace. We could go far to try to achieve that peace. We want our children to have a future. And we say that before all states in the world. We want to have the same rights and the same duties as a state. Therefore, the international community cannot convey these mistaken messages. For more than 35 years, we have completely been trying to build a peace with the State of Israel, but we have reached the conclusion that Israel, international law, well, you see, Israel is not implementing, applying international law, and everything that we hear about international justice, they are not doing that. So what has to be done now is to convey an important message for the Palestinian people. The international community must put into practice those resolutions and decisions. There has to be more justice on an international basis. Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. Let me give the floor to the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Malta, Mr. Angelo Farrugia. You have the floor.
Chair, Excellencies, it is with deep conviction that I address you today, not merely on behalf of Malta, but as a voice from the heart of a region we all share and all too often fragment. The Mediterranean is not a margin of Europe. It is Europe's mirror. It is not a buffer zone. It is today a bloodstream. And if today there is no peace in the Mediterranean, then I submit, as Prime Minister Don Mintov did in Helsinki half a century ago, there can be no peace in Europe if there will be not peace in the Mediterranean. The pain in Gaza and the war in Ukraine are not isolated. They echo through our neighborhoods, our economies, and our parliaments. They test not just our diplomacy, but our moral consistency. It is not enough to speak of human rights in Kiev while ignoring human rights in Khan Yunis. It is not enough to support sovereignty in one region while eroding dignity in another. This is not a question of blocks or borders. It is a question of conscience. In the light of rising tensions in the region, including the intensification of hostilities now between Israel and Iran, Malta believes the existing commitments under the PA-UFM declaration must be reviewed and also expanded. Peace can no longer remain a word in our diplomatic vocabulary. It must become our political directive. Silence has become complicity, and stability has become strategy of delay. If the Mediterranean is truly to be a zone of peace, Our declarations must contain not only principle, but also enforceable frameworks. So Malta placed this Assembly 4 concrete proposals. I'm going to go them through very quickly. The first one is the creation of a Mediterranean Youth Climate Corps, a multilateral civic initiative enabling thousands of young people to serve across borders in sustainability, education, and civil protection. Second, a parliamentary mechanism on media freedoms and political prisoners, tasked with the monitoring violation across the Europe-Mediterranean space. Transparency must become our credibility. Third, a shared resilience framework focused on renewable energy grids, water agreements, and food security corridors. The climate crisis does not discriminate, neither should our cooperation. And fourth, Malta proposes that the PAUFM urgently convene extraordinary session to examine the consequences of the Israeli-Iran confrontation and its potential spillover into the wider region war. Parliaments must not be relegated to commentaries on war, but must be architects of peace before the breach becomes irreversible. We must recognize the consequences of the long-standing inaction, Palestine, in Iran, and even recently, on the 23rd of June, missiles passed over airspace where, for example, passed over Qatar, a state not engaged in a war, clearly targeting military infrastructure. This is not speculation. It is confirmation that even non-belligerent states are now within range. There is no longer a safe distance. Neutrality and sovereignty now are also under threat. Moreover, the high concentration of foreign military bases across the Mediterranean, not to Malta because we closed the bases in 1979, but under the pretext of security, has instead become a trigger of insecurity, from security to insecurity. Presence without a balance invites provocation. Malta's reiterates that its constitutional neutrality is not optional, it is a sovereign principle, and we expect it to be respected. Assemblies like PAUFM must be clear. Our legitimacy lies in defending the peoples of the Mediterranean, not in echoing geopolitical alignments. Just as our global institutions have a legal and moral obligation to oversee nuclear disarmament, parliaments now also have a duty to enforce peace, not to applaud delay. We must become the front line of prevention, not the backroom of reaction. We must here not we have to be resilient that our region become one of peace. And we are seeing now increased militarization, politicized migration, and even worse, weaponization of silence. In such times, Parliament must not become spectators. We must become guarantors. As I stated in 2013, way back in the International Parliamentary Coalition for North Korean Refugees and Human Rights, I quote, human rights are not divisible. The dignity of one man, one woman, one child is universal. As I reminded scholars recently, about 3 weeks ago in Italy at the University of Korea, where I said, the sea of ours must become a laboratory of peace, not a graveyard of memory. That's what's taking place now. Let us no longer speak of the Mediterranean as a corridor of compromise. Let us make it a community of courage. Let us be the enforcement where we have a region where parliaments do not echo foreign agendas but shape shared futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Uvažene dame i gospodo, ekscelencije, sve vas srdačno pozdravljam. Pozdravljam zasjedanje predsjednika parlamenta Unije Mediterana i zadovoljstvo mi je da mogu sudjelovati na ovakvom jednom panelu. Pozdravljam sve one koji su usuglašavali deklaraciju i mislim da ona u današnje vrijeme veoma izbalansirana.
Un momento, señor Cabara, creo que no está llegando la traducción.
Just a moment, let's check on the translation channel.
Treba bi to Da li je sad u redu s prijevodom? Dobro, ja ću nastaviti dalje. Moja isprika ako nema prijevoda, ne znam. Niko nešto govori. Dobro. Ja ću ponoviti, poštovane ekscelencije, dame i gospodo, sve vas.
¿Hay algún problema, creo, con la traducción?
I believe that the translation from Bosnia is not coming through. Perhaps we should move on to the next speaker, and then we can give the floor back to you again.
Señor Cavara.
Mr. Cavara, what do you think?
Pues pasaremos un momentito a la siguiente intervención.
Well, I suggest we move on to the next intervention, and when the channel has been set up for that interpreter, we go back to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, honorable colleagues, Your Excellencies. I would like to greet you all warmly, and I would like to greet all of you who respect all views and exchange in the region of the Mediterranean and as well as in the world. I would like to welcome all who align these declarations with amendments which represent balanced view in the times, in challenging times for all Mediterranean countries and all countries in the world. Unfortunately, we are living in the world where we have ask from all countries to have views. Is everything in line with usual relationship? And we can interpret all this in a different view regarding Ukraine and the rest of the world. We can ask ourselves, can we change essentially the relationship in the world that are dominated more and more, the power of the great, of the power. We can all through our expressing of opinions to have an opportunity to build, to work on building peace and to work on influence on everything that we agree together to be influence on all other countries that are not so influenced and powerful. I think that we all have enough common sense in all spheres to do that. Such as this summit, no matter on the conclusions, it is very important to ask ourselves whether this will decrease the tensions in those regions that need that the most. We have to believe that every small steps of every international organizations can contribute those powers that are advocating for peace and progress in the Mediterranean and the Middle East, as well as in Ukraine and the whole world. I believe that we can do that. And once again, I would like to wish you success in all of that. Thank you very much.
Presidenta de la Asamblea Nacional Húngara, la señora Matrai.
Thank you very much for the floor, Honorable President, speakers, deputy speakers, honorable ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Spanish Parliament for the warm hospitality and also for organizing the nice speakers conference of the summit on the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean and related events. I am delighted to participate on the third occasion in the speakers meeting of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean, as this organization forms a bridge for regional dialogue. Hungary sees the Middle East countries and North African countries as key allies in resolving challenges and also when it comes to cooperation opportunities. The root causes of migration are extremely complex. Next to wars and conflicts, they include the impacts of climate change, water security and water supply issues, which all lead to displacement. In Europe and also in Hungary, we are under constant migration pressure. The Hungarian migration policy focuses on the effective protection of borders and aid and support provided locally. We believe that instead of migration heading to Europe, we should encourage and focus on supporting local families having children. When it comes to illegal migration, we should address the root causes locally, and we should focus on supporting third countries to make sure people can live in peace and prosperity in their own homelands. Since 2015, Hungary has been protecting the external borders of the EU from its own sources, spending over 2 billion euros so far. It's still a general experience that a significant part of illegal migrants do not need real protection. What's more, they often cross several safe countries before reaching their desired destination. The Hungarian presidency of the EU Council in the second half of 2024 therefore paid special attention to the external dimension of the migration. Hungary supports the conclusion of further EU-level and bilateral migration agreements, and we expect the upcoming Mediterranean Pact to offer a comprehensive and effective solution to Europe's migration crisis while promoting the development of affected third countries. Hungary attaches great importance to the stability, peace and security of the Mediterranean region. And therefore, we closely monitor developments in the region and offer support to crisis-hit communities through the Hungary Helps program. We believe that it's essential to provide appropriate protection to those genuinely in need, fleeing direct persecution. Hungary's solidarity is reflected by the fact that by the end of December 2024, we had ensured registered entry to nearly 1.5 million persons on the Ukrainian and Romanian borders to people who declared they were fleeing the war. Distinguished participants, given the projected rapid population growth in some African countries, the international community must assist the affected states by implementing a comprehensive economic development strategy. Therefore, Hungary places great trust in the continued strengthening of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean and in the deepening of cooperation among its member states. This may contribute to regional integration, economic growth, and to addressing the root causes of our shared challenges. Thank you for your kind attention.
Muchas gracias, señora vicepresidenta.
Thank you, Madam. I'd now like to give the floor to the next speaker, the Deputy Speaker of the Polish Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen, migration is a phenomenon that has been part of our continent's history for centuries. People have migrated to escape war, persecution, and poverty, as well as to seek a better life. These were the motivation of European immigrants who left of other continents through the 19th century. Today, Europe, especially the countries of the European Union, has become a destination for immigrants from all over the world. People want to live in Europe not only because of high living standards, but also because they can live in peace and have their human rights guaranteed. However, it should be remembered that people seeking a better life often face extremely difficult decisions on their way to Europe. Traveling across deserts, seas, and forests is dangerous and very often ends tragically for them. Moreover, migrants frequently fall victim to human trafficking, network smuggling, people into Europe. They also become pawns in geopolitical power plays and demonstrated by the situation at the border between the European Union and Belarus, which was sending migrants to the EU border in an attempt to destabilize member states. Europe faces the challenge of managing migration. On the one hand, Europe cannot isolate itself behind walls and become a fortress. Europe must retain its human face and act in accordance with European values. On the other hand, Europe cannot continue to accept people from different continents, infinitely who instead should be building their future at home. However, Europe should support the through development aid programs, which can improve the situation in these people's countries of origin. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor vicepresidente.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. I'd now like to give the floor to the Deputy Speaker of the Lithuanian Parliament.
My voice, as you can hear, I'm not from this region because I bring this voice with me from Lithuania, where we experience now plus 15 degrees in our country, so it's kind of changed what we have here in Malaga. But I hope it won't ruin my intervention. Euromed is really a great platform to share our views and experiences. It proves that it is not very easy always to find a common denominator, and it's pretty much normal. And thank you very much for sharing your priorities. My country is for immediate release of all the hostages held by Hamas. My country is for two-state solution and peaceful coexistence. But I won't surprise you that I'm going to speak about Russia and the war that has started in Ukraine. My country, each generation for centuries, experienced Russia's brutality. It had different names, Empire, Soviet Union, but their aspirations are the same. We had hopes for democratic opposition there, but they are harassed, put to jail, or fell out the balconies. When I was 6 years old, I saw Soviet tanks in the streets of our capital, Vilnius. They were killing civilians. For many years, I thought that this won't be repeated. But in 2008, Russia invaded Georgia, then Ukraine. Who will be next? Maybe my country, maybe Baltic countries. In this declaration, this war that Russia started in Ukraine is called armed conflict which caused migration flow. I can't agree on such definition. This war caused killings, rapes, children are kidnapped and deported to Russia. Russia is destroying normal world, a world that is based on rules, international agreements. Russia is exporting this brutality to other countries, to Middle East as well. The allies is Iran regime, North Korea. Let's not forget Russia's role in Syria, now in Libya. Russia's satellite Belarus used migrants as hybrid weapon. They invited people from Iraq and around to Belarus. Then the state-run structures brought those people on our Latvian, Poland borders. Russia does it in Finland. They use these people, those children. 3 years ago, I gave birth to my child the very same day when Russia bombed maternity ward in Mariupol. I experienced the blessing to have my child under peaceful sky in Lithuania, for now. Thousands today can't have it all around the world. Our responsibility is to defend and create normal world. Please do it. Let normal world based on rules and democracy be our common denominator. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, señora.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker. I'd now like to give the floor to the Executive Director of the Anna Lindh Foundation, Mr. Giuseppe Ferrer.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam.
The Spanish Presidency of the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM for the good work done with the organization of the encounters in Lanzarote, Granada and Malaga, and also, and above all, to be very supportive and enthusiastic to allow the active participation of a group of young leaders in the plenary of the forum in Granada and also in the plenary tomorrow. Youth empowerment and youth engagement is one of the objectives of the Annalen Foundation. This year, in 2025, we are celebrating the 30 years of the Barcelona process, but also we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Annalen Foundation. And in this regard, just last week, we celebrated what we call the Annalen Forum, the ALF Forum in Tirana, in Albania, with almost 900 participants despite the regional context. It was a strong call for dialogue, as dialogue is the first step to understand each other, to understand who is different from us, to build relationships and to work together. And this is the main objective of the Annalen Foundation. Dialogue as element of hope and trust, as indicated by Ms. Picerno. Also, under control of the next Egyptian presidency of the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM, the ALF, the Annalen Foundation, is ready and eager to structure and to consolidate the participation of youth leaders in the Parliamentary Assembly. Even more, the Commissioner Switzer referred in Granada, but also today, to the idea to develop a Mediterranean Youth Assembly in the framework of the new Pact for the Mediterranean. At the Annalen Foundation, we are already working to see how this initiative could be carried out to be meaningful and full of synergies and complementarities with the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM and also with the DMET of the European Parliament as a part of the ALF contribution to the new pact. Linked to this, it is necessary to involve more and more youth in the efforts undertaken on conflict prevention and conflict reconciliation, and to shape new narrative grounded on the Euro-Mediterranean common values. At the ALF, we strongly believe that migration is not just related to managing flows of people or to address security issues. Considering the demographic dynamics in North and the South, it is a need, the migration is a need for maintaining our welfare. And it is also an opportunity to enrich our societies, as has been indicated also before. The migration mainly deals with living together and managing the more and more diverse and complex societies in each country. It deals with how to ensure to achieve cohesion where the difference is seen not as a threat, but rather as an asset. And everything based on the principles of the intercultural dialogue, which implies proactive attitude, that means interest. I'm interested to who is different, direct interaction to build something together and not leaving anyone behind. In this regard, create spaces and opportunities to interact, to know each other are very necessary. Also, culture at the grassroots level and cultural activities with purpose, with an intercultural added value has a major role to play. Indeed, culture is a very powerful instrument in the Mediterranean that allows mutual recognition. It is instrumental to promote inclusion of migrants in our societies, and it is a soft power for conflict prevention and reconciliation. Let's take advantage of culture and intercultural dialogue together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferre. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the National Assembly of Slovenia.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues. I'm honored to participate at this opening debate on an issue that affects countries along the entire Mediterranean region, Mediterranean shore. Migration in this region always presented complex and multifaceted challenges which demand responses rooted in what we heard already in solidarity, culture, cooperation, and of course the shared responsibility. And the Mediterranean has long been a crossroads of cultures, trade, more recently of intense migratory flows. It is a place today where human suffering and displacement and hope intersect. These challenges are ever present in the Mediterranean, underscoring the need for a holistic approach to migration management that address its root causes and the points of the origin and development, peace building and climate resilience, of course, in the countries of the origin are not optional, they are essential and compulsory. In this context, the external dimension of migration management, as conceptualized by European Union, and which we heard at the opening session, plays a crucial role. These partnerships must be tailor-made. They have to be built on mutual respect, on shared goals and concrete action plans. They must support both border management on one side, obviously, and development cooperation on the points of origin. Slovenia, I would say, firmly believes that migration management is not just a border issue. It lies in the intersection of foreign policy, development, security, trade, and respect of human rights. Security is, of course, a critical component of migration management. The principle of non-refoulement is an absolute human right from which no deviation should be permitted. Migrants, and especially refugees, are not a threat. They are people, and we must treat them with compassion and dignity while remaining firm against those who exploit them and their vulnerability in their homelands. In this regard, implementing the new EU Pact on Migration and Asylum must strike a careful balance between effective border management and the protection of fundamental human rights. A human rights-centered approach must guide our policies. We must uphold international law and adhere to standards set by bodies such as the European Court of Human Rights. And, migrations are happening throughout centuries and millennia for many reasons. Recently, the reasons are not just of political security nature, but also of environmental nature. The war in the region is ongoing. Although a single missile may seem negligible in comparison with everyday urban environmental impact, releasing maybe just a few tons of CO2, we all know that war is not fought with a single missile. Conflicts today involve hundreds, even thousands of missiles, bombs, rounds of ammunition, some containing even depleted uranium, each compounding environmental devastation. These weapons not only flatten cities, but they contaminate soil, water, and air for decades. And they have a legacy of they leave a legacy of poisoned ecosystems, birth defects, cancer clusters, and scorched landscapes that may never fully recover. And this is the reason for the future influx of migration from the affected countries. So not just humanitarian, many of the esteemed colleagues addressed this earlier today in Slovenia. We observed tragedy of situation in Gaza with utter regret and sorrow. We are indeed very vocal about the necessity of finding a solution, calling for the resolutions on all international level through the Security Council of the UN, the EU and the NATO. A two-state solution is the only reasonable and viable way. And that is why we recognized Palestine last year. So let me conclude. If we in the Mediterranean region, home to millennia of civilization, are truly serious and sincere about justice, which include also, of course, climate justice and our basic human right to a livable planet, and peace and only peace sustainable and based on respect of human rights, civilian humanitarian law, and international rule of law, but above all this, based on basic and primal human decency and respect for each other. Such like peace must and should prevail and should be recognized as one of our most powerful environmental policies. Let us use this and the future summits like this to transform this shared understanding of the roots of our problems. And together, I think we can shape a Mediterranean that is safer and that is more humane and more united. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank once again to the host for hosting this wonderful event. And I hope it will be a fruitful debate in the concluding of the session. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias. Tiene la palabra.
Thank you. I'd now like to give the floor to the head of delegation of the Grand Assembly of Turkey.
Sayın Başkan, değerli meslektaşlarım, öncelikle sizleri şahsım ve Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi Başkanı adına saygıyla selamlıyorum. Malaga'da
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Grand Assembly of Turkey. And I hope that our meeting will be a very fruitful one. Over the last year, Spain has organized this summit in an excellent manner, and I wish Egypt all the success for their future presidency. Well, the challenges that we're faced with are huge, both at local and global level. Climate change, youth employment, migratory flows, and social injustices which the Mediterranean basin is faced with makes us face serious challenges. In Huntington, there is a thesis on the clash of civilizations. After the Cold War, global policies have led to several challenges. According to Huntington, I may not entirely agree with them, but the cultural differences in the hegemony of the West and border conflicts are the cause of this clash of civilizations. But if there is a conflict in the world, it means that we're not civilized. If we are civilized, then we should not have or suffer conflicts. So the Huntington concept is a paradox. I believe that this could be more like imperial wars or wars of ego, of the egos. So in Turkey, for years, we have been welcoming millions of refugees. And a lot has been said about climate change. But what I have seen over recent years is that we're talking about a large number of things, but we don't seem to have any power. Not even the United Nations has any power, because we cannot approve any resolution which could make Israel or Russia abide by the law, because as President Erdogan said, is it possible to have a fairer situation? The world is larger than the 5 members of the Security Council. It can't possibly be the 5 countries that govern millions of people in the world. So we believe that we should work to have at least one Muslim country amongst the members of the Security Council with the right to vote. Because if not, those 5 countries are simply going to be doing whatever they like. They will start wars, but here we just have a lot of discussions and waste our times in cocktails and lunches, but have no power whatsoever. So together we need to stop Israel, to have a ceasefire, which could be a lengthy ceasefire. We need to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza. We need to put an end to the suffering of the Palestinians. 146 countries support a solution, whereas 2 countries have the right to veto. And this is not diplomacy. Everything that we have said should make sense, should be used in the United Nations. Therefore, we believe that the time has come to have a sovereign country that has as a capital Eastern Jerusalem. Thank you.
Tiene ahora la palabra el jefe de la delegación de la Cámara.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to give the floor to the head of the delegation of the Chamber of Luxembourg. Thank you so much, Madam, and thank you for this very warm welcome, honourable colleagues. I think that in all our discussions, decisions, and action, we need to be guided by the same principles that are the right to peace, the right to democracy, the right to freedom, the territorial integrity, and the right to the law, to international law, to human rights, and to the inalienable right of existing. And this is true for Israel, which needs to be recognized by all its neighbors, and the right to a state for the Palestinians. We cannot possibly take up any positions or make any statements that are kind of designed particularly for an individual country. No, what we need is the total protection of civilians, of the infrastructure that needs to be protected, and humanitarian aid that needs to continue existing. The situation of the civilians, we cannot possibly draw a distinction between the killings carried out by terrorists or the killings carried out by a state. If you kill civilians, innocent civilians, it is always the same. And you need, of course, to judge very severely, criticize and judge the terrorists, but at the same time, we need to be able to judge those responsible for the killings under the cover or pretext of a flag. I'm very proud of our parliament. Our parliament at the very moment, at this very moment, while we meet here in Malaga, I'm very proud to say that a unanimous motion was approved condemning the attacks on civilian infrastructures, on residential areas, on hospitals, and on the civilian population And we call for an immediate ceasefire, for a peace, a durable peace, the release of hostages, and the victims of either side. And I'd like to remind you of the Rabat Declaration. That was a very clear declaration, and which was also approved unanimously. The same motion calls for safe corridors for humanitarian aid. So by way of conclusion, honourable colleagues, we need to guide our views and our opinions on and based on our principles and not on the basis of the principle of the designs, tailor-made designs for an individual country. Crimes committed are crimes, whether they are committed, perpetrated by one or the other. Thank you so much for your attention.
Muchísimas gracias. Tiene ahora la
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the People's National Assembly of Algeria.
شكرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Thank you very much. In the name of the compassionate and merciful God, Madam Speaker of the Congress of Deputies here in Spain, Honourable First Deputy Speaker of the Senate of Spain, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of parliaments, colleagues, honourable members of this meeting, first of all, I would like to convey to you the greetings from our country. The head of our country would like to hope that this will be a successful meeting, and thank you very much to the government of the Kingdom of Spain and to all of the authorities responsible for organizing such a productive event. There are so many ideas coming out of this, and hopefully we will have more synergies and a convergence of positions around the Mediterranean. We have to take a comprehensive, holistic perspective on everything that's happening within our beloved Mediterranean basin, and also take into account what is thought by our sibling countries. We need to pool our efforts to ensure mutual respect and guarantee the interests of every member country here. Migration is an extremely important topic because of the impact it has on the balance in our society and economy in Algeria. We're convinced that this reality, this phenomenon, could, in fact, lead to a true opportunity to drive development and the exchange of experiences of all types. When addressing the array of challenges and tragedies that we are all facing today, and I'm talking here about climate change and the economy, we also have to respect human rights and ensure that our policies are fully aligned with our actions. So our President, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has promoted the adoption of a paradigm of synergies to be able to deal with this reality of migration, which embraces respect for the victims of this phenomenon, and also taking into account the interests, the benefits of all of the stakeholders on both sides of the Mediterranean. Algeria has made such an effort, has striven so hard to try and combat illegal migration that is being driven by mafia groups, leading to those tragic outcomes on both sides of the Mediterranean. And we are also are highly committed to cooperation between our member countries here. Also, African countries and the African Union have to do everything possible to ensure peace and balanced development with enhanced cooperation. Algeria also advocates the idea that this phenomenon, migration, is not just about economic and social spheres. It goes beyond those spheres. There are also moral issues that we have to take into account. We need to guarantee peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, that respect for the dignity of all migrants, but also the respect for the members of societies who receive this migration, people in issuing countries, transit countries, and destination countries. Honourable ladies and gentlemen, we need to really take on board and assimilate this paradigm of migration when it comes to developing initiatives to promote economic and social development. The Palestinian people are also suffering many different violations of international law, international humanitarian law, all kinds of aggressions. We're seeing this on a daily basis. We need to take into account the principles of justice and avoid force turning into the only instrument that can consolidate and lead to peace. We need to combat violations by the Zionist state against the Palestinian people who are isolated, and we need to undertake that legitimate fight and take it to all of the corners and pathways of the Mediterranean basin. We need to work for that solution defended by the UN to consolidate the Palestinian territory prior to 1967 with Jerusalem as the capital of the sovereign Palestinian state. And we urge the Zionist state to actually bring to an end the violence also against Iran. This most recent conflict has spiraled the tension there, which hasn't just impacted the Middle East, but the whole Mediterranean area and even the international panorama, because it has triggered the involvement of third countries in this conflict. Ultimately, we have to combat any form of injustice and avoid any stance that can lead to an escalation of violence, and we have to assume all of our responsibility, take all the steps that are necessary to be able to moderate and curb all of these conflicts. Also in the African Sahel regions, the conflicts that we're seeing, those hotspots in that area, which is close to our borders in Algeria, that is all having a knock-on effect on the whole of the continent. So we are convinced in Algeria that the hotspots of tension in the Sahel are spots of violence that are compromising stability and peace in Algeria and the whole of the Mediterranean area. We also need to bear in mind that these kinds of tensions have an impact in the whole of Africa, for Africa. And so it is Africa that needs to be able to come up with solutions. We have to involve the states in Africa. So Algeria is continuing to work for cooperation with bilateral, regional, and multilateral initiatives with our neighbor countries and through our Algerian international cooperation development agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, to finish my intervention, I need to state to you that our approach is not only to resolve the conflict, but also to consolidate justice. That is why we are convinced that we need to work for permanent stability and social justice that are the basis for the future. allowing participation by young people, the elderly, and women. And they also need to be the pillars to be able to establish the right balance for all of us. We have been dealing with all of these questions, and they can help us to broaden horizons of cooperation with regard to youth. Algeria has always had a very comprehensive, holistic approach there. And lastly, we would like to underscore the endeavors being taken by the Spanish presidency in this direction. We congratulate the Spanish presidency on the work done, and we wish the future Egyptian presidency all good fortune. I'm sure it will be very successful with all of these initiatives and endeavors that we are all involved in. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the Hellenic Parliament.
Distinguished colleagues, esteemed presidents, first of all, allow me to thank the Spanish presidency for the excellent work, the useful initiatives they have undertaken during their presidency of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean that gave new impetus to this assembly. It is with genuine appreciation that I join you here today for the 9th Summit of Speakers, and I would like to take this opportunity to strongly denounce the horrific terrorist attack that took place last Sunday at the Mar Elias Greek Orthodox Church in Damascus. Religious sanctuaries must never become targets of such vile acts. It is imperative to ensure that safety and protection of the Christian population in Syria, along with all other religious and ethnic communities. The Syrian transitional authorities must act swiftly and decisively to implement effective measures that uphold accountability and safeguard all religious groups. Migration is not simply a regional concern. It's a crucial global issue affecting all our regions bound by history and proximity, while called to deal with both humanitarian and security implications arising from the movement of people. The need for strategic, humanitarian, and effective policies is now more urgent than ever. As a frontline country, Greece bears a dual responsibility: securing our borders, which are also those of the European Union, and doing so with respect to international law and human dignity. In this context, we are faced with intricate realities every day, and these pressures require swift, coordinated action that produces results that are both strict but fair. On a daily basis, we are combating against and dismantling networks of human traffickers. We effectively carry our own weight, but enforcement alone is not enough. The nature of modern migration, especially when used as a tool of political leverage, demands a comprehensive and collective response. Greece believes in shared responsibility. That means providing greater support, financial, institutional, and operational, to the countries that serve as Europe's first line of defense. Solidarity must be more than a slogan. It has to be a mechanism of action, as detected by the new Pact on Migration and Asylum adopted by EU member states last year. At the heart of our approach lies a threefold strategy: tackling the root causes of migration, combating illegal crossings, and facilitating safe, legal routes for those seeking a better future. For this to succeed, cooperation and partnership between countries of origin, transit, and destination is vital. A critical field for consideration is return procedures. These must be more effective and more consistent. Without a reliable system of returns, our asylum procedures strain under pressure, also bringing into question the very effectiveness of our migration policies. This is an issue that needs to be squarely addressed, Migration flows remain intense across the Mediterranean, and the instability in the broader Middle East only heightens the need for vigilance and readiness. This is a shared challenge, and as such, it must be met with shared solutions. Dear colleagues, Greece has undertaken a huge task, managing irregular migration while guarding the European Union borders and upholding our legal and ethical obligations. If approached wisely and with cooperation, migration can evolve from a challenge into a force, one that deepens our cultural foundations and revitalizes our core values that bring us closer together. And today's discussions are part of that journey. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the Italian Chamber of Deputies.
Grazie, signora Presidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker of the Parliament of the Kingdom of Spain, Honourable Deputy Speaker of the Spanish Senate, honourable speakers, representatives of the countries around the Mediterranean, honourable members of Parliament and guests. It's a pleasure for me to take part in representation of Lorenzo Fontana, Speaker of the Italian Parliament, and he'd like to greet you through me. And I know that tomorrow the Spanish presidency will be handed over, and I'd like to thank the Spanish presidency for the enthusiasm and the effort by organizing this particular conference. And I wish a lot of luck to the Egyptian Parliament, which will be taking over the presidency. Now, I believe that the present situation in reference to Huntington is not really due to the clash of civilizations, but Najim Talib, the black stain of the pandemic that has led us to here. We need to deal with the migratory issues, and we need to say that we all understand that it's important to manage these flows, and we need to look and fight against illegal immigration and the criminal phenomena which are benefiting from this, and to stop the drama of deaths in the Mediterranean. We've also looked at the profound causes that have led to the immigrations. Armed conflicts and violence and poverty have led to migratory flows across borders and across the seas. Just like our colleague from Greece has said, that the very recent situation that took in Mare Elias in Damascus, which really makes us think of the terror of Daesh, and also violations of human rights, economic and social instability, the lack of prospects, especially for young people, which leads us to see that many people want to leave their countries. That is why Italy, with the government, is trying to find specific answers to the needs expressed by African nations through the Mattei Plan for Africa, which has led to create reciprocal opportunities, not on a paternalistic basis, not simple charity, but we have 5.5 million euros dedicated to this, 5.5 billion euros for the African partners who can benefit from this project. And we're also starting up initiatives. Many of you are familiar with this, especially the future Egyptian presidency is familiar with the work projects for young people and for the creation of jobs. The dramatic events of the last few years make us feel very upset. But let us remember what we want as a future for our children. We need to base this on a dialogue, on cooperation. We need to listen to each other and to respect the opinions of others. We need courage, and especially the courage to keep open channels of dialogue, even though this is difficult or uncomfortable. I'd like to thank the presidency, the Spanish presidency, and good luck to the Egyptian presidency. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the Chamber of Councillors of Morocco.
Gracias,
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning to all of you. Each one of you with your name and, of course, your position. Ladies and gentlemen, to complement the intervention we heard earlier from the institution in Morocco, I would like to say on behalf of the Kingdom of Morocco how grateful we are to the authorities here in Spain, the Kingdom of Spain, for the organization of these events and the endeavors that are being made here in Spain to be able to consolidate all of those successes of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean, which has always played such an important role in trying to drive dialogue and bring together in cooperation the two sides of the Mediterranean. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean has consolidated its position, I believe, as a very active participant trying to address all of those challenges that are facing our region, including climate change, migration, unemployment, economic and social inequalities. All of those challenges are putting us in a position where we need to mutually understand each other. We need to find common solutions to those common problems. The Mediterranean is not just a geographical region. It is a human space. It is a space of civilizations that brings together our populations, and therefore it is our responsibility to work on that basis. The Mediterranean has always been a paradigm and an example of coexistence and between different peoples at a cultural, social, and ethnic level. Therefore, we have to work on the basis of attempts to achieve social justice, climate justice, and also we need to bear in mind the key phenomenon of our times, which is migration. It is a phenomenon that affects every single area and corner of the Mediterranean. It means that we have to work together as countries of origin, transit, and destination of migrants, and it will definitely be taken on board as a theme to be addressed by Egypt during the next presidency, working for well-being and prosperity for all societies and peoples as we move forward. The Kingdom of Morocco has put at the heart of all of its initiatives migration, and that imperative, that need to create linkages, partnerships between all sides, covering renewable energies, the energy transition, and migration has to be dealt with always on a human rights-based approach. the Alliance of Civilizations also involves respect for culture and the territorial integrity of all member states gathered here. And we would also say from our Moroccan Parliament, the Chamber of Councillors, that we are working to satisfy the needs of our peoples and want to continue to have peace and stability in our region.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the Italian Senate, Mrs. Pedrucci.
Grazie. Grazie.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mrs. Armengol, President Picerno, other colleagues, well, friends. I'm really happy to be here with you today. I greet you on behalf of the President of the Senate, Inacela Russa. I'd like to thank the Spanish presidency. They've really given a huge thrust to this assembly. We said this before, and it has to be repeated, because you can't just take this at face value. You've been looking at important subjects, and subjects that I'm sure will create a basis for dialogue. I'd like to thank the European Parliament for being here, for the governance that you are giving us during this assembly. You are certainly dealing with the needs of each country that is within this very important organization, and I think that is the European Parliament. So thank you. And since I've spoken about gratitudes, let me tell a little bit about Italy. Italy is a country where we have a crossroads of culture, of prosperity, of the people of Mediterranean. We've always believed in the prosperity of Mediterranean people, and we wanted to put development of the Mediterranean at the very heart of our priorities. This is essential for the stability and prosperity of countries that are on the two sides, on the two shores of the Mediterranean. Thank you so much, Vice President Maroto, for the figures that you gave us on immigration, because we truly believe in immigration. So controlled immigration, legal immigration, regulated immigration. And we believe that immigration is an opportunity for growth and the exchanges between the two shores of the Mediterranean, but respecting the economies and the peoples of our countries. These are challenges. A country cannot possibly believe that it can face up to its challenges on its own. The challenges of growth and competitiveness of the Mediterranean is of importance to all of us, and we as countries need to be able to share the visions and solutions with all partners, especially those on the southern shores of the Mediterranean. We need to create conditions between cultures to govern looking at a long-term vision. And I know because of the challenges that we have today, we need to look at the environmental challenges and climate change, which has also been tackled by this organization. We want to create a positive agenda, and we want to turn the Mediterranean into an area of opportunity for everyone. A political dialogue has to be established through the mediation that we can carry out through our government, through diplomatic action. We need to look at the resources, at the competences of each country, and through our dialogue, we need to have an exchange of experience and the search of what unites us, especially Generally speaking, we look at what separates us, but what we need to focus on is what we share. So we want to get all countries to unite in this huge region. And members of parliament can help, can carry messages to the different sounding boards so that we have a common object to create prosperity. We need to share resources. We need to share views, to dialogue, to establish a dialogue together to create a model of common cooperation and growth to the benefit of those countries that are more disadvantaged, which countries that suffer from migration and war. So I hope that today we can promote projects, well, maybe small projects. Yes, they may be small, but these projects need to, at the end of the day, create trust and mutual understanding. So once again, I would like to greet Francina wholeheartedly for the work that you have done and the way that you have been able to help us all. So I also wish a lot of luck to the future presidency. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor now to the head of the delegation of the National Assembly from France.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you to all who have contributed to the organization of this organization. Colleagues, we are all faced with the problems of migration caused by conflicts, by political conflicts, or by climate issues. France, the country of human rights, the country of fundamental rights, and also the rights of women and rights of citizens. France has always been a welcoming country, always wants to welcome those who want to live freely. We will always play our role when it comes to immigration, and we will always focus on human rights. Human rights should be our guideline, which we need to focus on. The present conflicts can only be solved by diplomacy. France, therefore, calls for a ceasefire of all the conflicts that exist in the world. Territorial integrity cannot be called into question. Everyone in the world needs to be able to live within its recognized borders freely. By 2030, 100 million immigrants will be in existence in the world. So let us try and welcome these immigrants and find common solutions to help them. I believe, on behalf of France, to thank the presidency, Mrs. Francina Armengol, and I would also like to congratulate Egypt, because their presidency will start tomorrow. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, señor Fivet.
Thank you very much to you, to the last speaker, and to all speakers for the interventions. And I really am grateful to the kind words about the work that's been done by the Spanish presidency. We'll move on to the closing session of this 9th summit. And as we have done before, we will also ensure that this is all about the uncertainties because of the conflict in the Middle East. In this period, 2024 to 25, as you know, Spain chose a topic that is very much linked to the international situation, the migratory situation in the Mediterranean, from a comprehensive perspective. That is why Spanish presidency began with a special verification mission to Cyprus to get to know firsthand the migratory situation in that country. It was followed by a meeting of the parliaments of the south of the European Union and the southern shore of the Mediterranean in Lanzarote to address the specific challenges posed by migratory flows between the most affected origin, transit, and destination countries. So with this ninth summit of speakers of the Parliamentary Assembly and also the 18th meeting then of the plenary, we will be bringing the Spanish presidencies to an end. We will move on to the Egyptian presidency. Before I make a brief summary of the conclusions, I need to say thank you so much to the work that was done by all of the teams of all the delegations, of course, most especially. I have to say thank you to the teams working on behalf of the Spanish Congress of Deputies and the Senate. But there has been a lot of backstage work, technical work done. We have agreed these conclusions. So we have reached a consensus. There has been a lot of earlier work done with the delegations, all of our technical teams there to be able to take on board all of those suggestions and amendments and improvements that have taken us to the conclusions that we'll be approving today. Let me see if I can summarize. The speakers, deputy speakers and representatives of parliaments on above all reiterate our commitment to cooperation on both sides of the Mediterranean. This has to be a space that is committed to solidarity, peace, and human rights. This pact today is even more important than ever before, and we will also be looking at the dialogue of this partnership as we are moving to the 30th anniversary of the Barcelona process. The Mediterranean countries over recent years have registered significant migratory flows that pose a very important challenge for all the involved countries and that put many, many human lives at risk. And we need to work to understand that migration is an opportunity for development for the countries of origin, transit, and destination, putting human rights at the very heart of our migratory policy and our cooperation at an international level. We need to always take into account that these structural factors, demographics, environment, and poverty are determining factors when it comes to understanding and addressing migration from a comprehensive perspective. We also committed to the full compliance with that global compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 2018. And we also welcome the progress entailed at the European Union level by the adoption of the Pact on Migration and Asylum, and also those national laws on migration and asylum of Mediterranean partnering countries. We're also following with great interest the negotiation undertaken by the European Commission for the Mediterranean with a view to the adoption of a new pact for the Mediterranean. We believe that we need to build a Mediterranean that guarantees quality employment, stable and equal conditions, especially for young people and women, which is fully aligned with the fight against climate change and protection of the environment. And to do that, we need to eliminate all racist and xenophobic speeches and set up measures and awareness programs on the migratory reality on the one hand, as well as promoting renewable energy sources and the development of sustainable and clean technologies. The speakers, deputy speakers and representatives of parliaments, of course, are all fully aware of the fact that the conflicts on European soil, and we are not, of course, forgetting the suffering of the Ukrainians. They said the conflicts in the Sahel and the Middle East have a decisive impact on the evolution of migratory flows in the Mediterranean. We strongly condemn the hostilities and the assassination and murder of civilians, including many girls and boys in the Gaza Strip. And we would demand an immediate permanent ceasefire there. We demand that the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza that is sufficient, that can cover the growing needs of the civilian population. And we are following with great interest the processes to consolidate the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel and the political and constitutional transition in Syria. We would also demand that the ceasefire between Israel and Iran is permanent and absolute. Essentially, then, we are calling on all to come back to their senses and work for peace. We know that the strengthening of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean is a unique opportunity to be able to complement the endeavours made by the Union for the Mediterranean on the basis of democratic legitimacy and the ability to mobilise all parties and have dialogue between the Euro-Mediterranean parliaments. Let's continue in that way. Let's continue to have this regular agenda of meetings and encounters. And I would also like to say to the next Egyptian presidency to ask them to hold a parliamentary meeting to celebrate the Day of the Mediterranean on the 28th of November on the occasion of the 10th Regional Forum. Let me finish by saying that during the Spanish presidency, we have worked with our hearts and with our minds to strengthen the work being done by the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean. And we've done that in close collaboration with the previous presidencies, the Parliament of Morocco and, of course, the European Parliament. And I would like to say to both parliaments, thank you so much for the work you've done, their constant endeavours. And to the next Egyptian Parliament presidency, I would say I would hope you continue to be successful with the endeavours that we have shared up to now. Let me finish by saying thank you to all of you who have made this possible. Of course, the public servants working in the Congress of Deputies in the Senate, those are officers that have worked behind the scenes for the Spanish presidencies, and all members of your teams, your delegations, and everybody here today at this meeting in Malaga, everybody who has put together the infrastructure that we are able to enjoy. I think we can complete this with a round of applause for the consensus that we've once again reached with these conclusions we can approve unanimously. Thank you.
Vamos a pasar al.
I think the Deputy Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Egypt has a surprise for us.
معالي الصديقة العزيزة.
Thank you, Madam Speaker of the Spanish Congress. Dear friend, your Deputy Speaker of the Senate, honourable delegates, whatever I say here today, when I look at the way in which the Parliamentary Assembly has worked over the last few years, I will never find enough words to say that over the last year, so much has been done in such an excellent way. A lot of activity has been carried out by Mrs. Armengol. We know that there was hardly any activity and the Parliamentary Assembly hardly existed, despite the fact that it's a very important organization. It's the branch of government to generate policies. So thank you, Madam. You have done a lot. You have organized many meetings, and it has been an honor for us, Mrs. Francina Armengol. Thank you, and also Your Majesty, the King of Spain, honored us with his presence at the Granada meeting. So thank you. Greetings to Mrs. Francina Armengol, the Speaker of the Spanish Parliament. And of course, we must always remember Morocco, Mr. Rashid Al-Ahem. Of course, you have been our guide, because before there was a stop, an interruption in the work of the Parliamentary Assembly. Mr. Rashid, your work has been very valuable in guiding us, and the positive effect this has had on the functioning of the Assembly. And of course, we also need to mention the role of the Mediterranean Parliament, because that was really the only link that we had between the southern and northern shores of the Mediterranean. So I wish you all success. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our work is interaction of experiences of the past, and we have aspirations, and as you've heard, we would like to see tangible results. We want to take advantage of all the experiences of the past. And how can we do this? How can we introduce this? We need to look at the future of our relationships between our countries. There need to be new visions. And as to the relations between the north and south of the Mediterranean, how can we have a joint vision, a holistic approach, a relationship which is a win-win relationship? We need, therefore, to talk to each other from a different perspective. And this requires a large amount of legislation, of new practices. We need to carry out an assessment of our action, and we need to be proactive. We can't be reactive. We need to be proactive. We always need to have a proactive vision in order to avoid the damage that could be caused. We would have to look into the future. We need to understand the future, and this could solve our problems. Allow me to talk about new platforms, new platforms that would make it possible for us to react and interact with the aspirations of young people, platforms with the use of new technologies, platforms that assess the type of exchanges that we have, and this could give us some signals as to what we're doing. We're moving in the right direction, or a specific platform is really what we need. And that would be a good solution from an economic, political, and social point of view. So we should be talking about this in greater detail in the future. But the vision that we have is that one. And I think I also can say that future aspirations do require an analysis of the past to create a new era. Political, economic, and social committees, they all need to take part in this through new visions, and there must be a role, a specific role to be played by each and every one of them so that we can assess the past and look at the different political platforms. So this can put an end to the lies, because this would be able to allow us to understand what's happening on the ground. That's what we want. And of course, in the future sessions, there will also be a conversation on this issue. So from Egypt, I would like to welcome you. Greater Egypt wants you to participate. We want all of you to have an opinion, and we have to support the rights of the Palestinian people. This is the main cause in the Middle East. Thank you. You all wanted to know the truth. Some, however, are arrogant and falsify the situation. You are fair. You have been fair, and we need to have new initiatives because the military vision is not the only vision that you can take into account. The security of our region is not simply a military solution. It's humanitarian. It's has to be based on justice. So the participation of these initiatives will be based on what is possible. In September, in the month of September, that is, there will be a meeting, and then in November there will be another meeting, and hopefully we will be celebrating the Day of the Mediterranean. And we will be sending out historic messages which comes from your opinions, which emanates from your opinions. I hope this will be a faithful reflection of your views. We're also going to have some specialized committees, expert committees who can communicate online. We don't need to have in-person meetings. Let me talk about the Anna Lindh Foundation. The Anna Lindh Foundation has played an important role in forming constructive opinions. We very much appreciate all the work that has been done by the Anna Lindh Foundation. And I reaffirm that all the recommendations that have been carried out during the Spanish presidency with the support of my great friend, Francina Armengol, for us it's an honor to take into account and put into practice all these recommendations. It's a commitment to us. And if God wants, I would like to, on the 28th of November, there's going to be a major event. There will be an International Day for the Economy. And that is where we could talk about projects, ideas, and major financial institutions, the businessmen, people from industry, infrastructure. So we'll be uniting all of them, and we will try to put this before you, before the Parliamentary Assembly, and let us hope that all of this can be put into practice. I don't want to go on at great length. We've had many opinions, and I feel that a family has been formed because our views are very close. Because peace has to be achieved through justice, through conviction, through love. You've seen the 4 or 5 wars that Israel has led against Gaza. Who won? Nobody. Nobody won. And what have they achieved? Nothing. Everyone has lost. All the parties have lost. All the sides have lost. And the same is true to the other wars. No wars have been won. And maybe the American leadership could achieve peace in our region. President Trump, when he wanted and intervened between Pakistan and India, well, there was a ceasefire achieved. And what happened between Israel and Iran, well, again, he intervened and the war was stopped and there was a ceasefire. So I say, please, please act to stop the war against the Palestinians so that you can reach a ceasefire, and that way we can start helping the Palestinian people. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for everything that you have offered. And I'd like to praise you for all the efforts that you have made. Thank you. Thank you very much.
What did they know that we still don't? Because they built for eternity, they left us clues.
أنا لم أقل لكم ده اسمحوا لي ده فيلم عن
Every myth a lesson.
the new museum.
Justice wasn't just an idea, it was a goddess. The sun.
This is a video about the
Grand Egyptian Museum. You can get closer than ever to unlocking it all because every artifact holds a secret. Every object tells a story. Not just the triumphs of kings and queens, but the stories of everyday life. Stories of family, of faith, of being human. This is the history of the future. This is ancient Egypt brought back to life, seen, heard, touched, smelled, and tasted. Still, images begin to move. Perhaps this is what eternity truly means. To leave something behind that still speaks, still teaches, still moves the soul. The Grand Egyptian Museum, the largest museum dedicated to ancient Egypt, coming to life the 3rd of July, 2025.
شكرا. هذا هو المتحف الكبير في مصر الذي يحتوي.
Well, this is the Museum of Ancient Egypt, which has over 100,000 masterpieces. And when you come and see us in Egypt, well, I promise you'll be able to visit this museum. You will also always be welcome to come and visit Egypt. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vice President. Okay, so we're now closing this session and we're going to lunch. Have a good lunch.